This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everybody. And I sensed a smaller group today with the Raptors winning and the sunny weather coming. But to any avail, we'll have a great call, and those that missed can listen to the recording later. So I hope everyone had a great weekend, and props to the Toronto Raptors for bringing home a championship, which is super motivating and just fantastic for not only Toronto and the fans, but people around the world. So I guess you could say they had a great closing on their season. So today week 11, pre-qualifying and closing naturally, the comfortable approach. With any presentation in sales, we need to finish it by asking for the business. And without asking, not everybody's just going to, they're just not going to come in and give you their business. So it's great that it's great to have a great presentation, and then the closing will come naturally. So let's think about this. Pre-qualifying and closing effectively are the bookends to every successful transaction. So really, without them, the beginning is vague and the ending is even more vague. If we're not pre-qualifying, you're just kind of going in willy-nilly. And we're going to get more into that as we talk about pre-qualifying here coming up. But, make sure that if you get anything out of today is the importance of pre-qualifying. And a lot of us make the mistakes because they're tough questions to ask, because we're afraid of getting the rejection of them saying, no, I'm not going to list my house with you when you come today. So the pre-qualifying scripts for buyers and sellers are quite possibly the most important scripts you're going to use. And they really, really are, because one, it sets us up to look professional, because we're asking questions that a lot of agents aren't going to do. They're just going to show up. They're going to show up and they're going to not be able to handle the objections that might already be on the table because they've asked the pre-qualifying questions. There's a famous quote by Beverly Sills: "There are no shortcuts to any place worth going." There are no shortcuts to any place worth going, and it's really true. We talked about it in one of our weeks before, and we'll probably bring it up a bit later here today. But even when you are going to list mom and dad's house, your best friend's house, your sister or your brother's, be in the habit of always staying consistent in pre-qualifying. Okay. There's really three main questions that are for pre-qualifying. There's three questions. A is, can they get the money? Will they buy in a reasonable period of time? Again, if you're not pre-qualifying and you're working with buyers that aren't pre-qualified or that have no plans on buying until the winter, and you're showing them properties in March, and also, do you want to work with these people? Do I want to work with these people? You have to set minimum standards. Again, we've talked about that before, where the minimum standards need to be set so that you decide who you're going to work with, not always who decides to work with you. Okay, because again, you don't want the time vampires. You don't want people using you to show them a bunch of properties and then to use another town agent. So again, pre-qualifying is going to help you, even before they go on paper to make an offer. It's going to help you with buyers to get that buyer representation agreement signed. In week 8, if you go back to week 8 into your documents, there's a buyer pre-qualification script from All the Right Words. Use that. It is so important. It's just really going to help you weed out, for lack of better terminology, the weak. Okay. Proper self pre-qualification it answers three main questions. Do they really want to move? Are they just having you over so that they're, they just get an idea of what their house is worth? Or do they really want to move? What objections will I face at the listing appointment? By pre-qualifying them, you're going to ask them what they think their house should be selling for. A lot of them will say, well, that's your job, but you might be able to get it out of them, we wouldn't sell for anything less than 600,000. If the house is only worth 400, that's one of those questions you're figuring out. Do you really want to work for people, or which is C, should I go out there? Should you even waste your time? Okay. So those are things that are going to help you decide whether you're wasting your time or also just help you get the answers to their objections so that when you're out there, that presentation runs smoothly. Again, the seller pre-qualification script within week 5, to go back to your notes there, or I believe they're in the workbook, and also if you do have the All the Right Words package, they're in there as well. So there's some rules to follow. There's 4 really great rules to follow when you are pre-qualifying and closing, but pre-qualify everyone, every time, no excuses, no shortcuts. Mom and dad, brother, sister, best friends, next door neighbors. Get in the habit of staying consistent and having your routine in your system. B, you want to answer or ask all the questions, again, every time, and no excuses and no shortcuts. Ask all the questions. Your best friend might want to list with someone else because your commission is more expensive, but you need to get those answers out of them. See, this is a great thing to do is, and I'm sure all of you or some of you are doing them, but write down all their answers on a blank script form and save it in their file. There's nothing more professional than going over the notes and knowing and having that conversation. Say, oh, I remember you told me that when you moved to Chicago, you were thinking of getting a bungalow. Just knowing exactly what they tell you and keeping that in the in your archive. My dentist, a great example. It makes him look good. I know what he's doing. His assistants are typing in as we're talking. If I say I'm going to Spain for a month, a year later I go to the dentist. How was your trip to Spain? Right? They have a lot of people going through there, but they write things down. And for me, it makes me feel special when they're drilling my face. But also I'm like, well, it's really nice that they remembered that. It seems professional, and it makes me want to go back. And then treat everyone the same, especially those people you know personally. It's really important, okay? Always position yourself as a professional. Best friend's house, brothers, sisters, wear your best dress. Don't go in flip-flop shorts and a t-shirt, the baseball hat sideways that says Raptors champion. Again, set yourself up as the professional. When you're asking for referrals, that's the stuff they remember. They'll remember when you came to their appointment and how you looked versus showing up in your, in your painting clothes. Okay. So here's what happens when agents don't pre-qualify. Okay. They end up showing many more homes per buyer because if they're not asking all the questions, all the details of what their buyers actually want, they end up showing a ton of homes. You see 4 bungalows, and at the end of those, we really want that. It's a silly little thing, but it is something that will make you show more properties. And then by the time you've done that and you do get a sale with these people, if you ever do, you end up getting less money per hour. Okay? They get less contracts signed. Because if you don't know what they want, if you don't know what people are able to handle because you've asked those questions in advance, you're not going to be able to close on them and get those contracts signed. They're going to take overpriced listings and get less commission. I spoke about this before. There's 2 rules in real estate. The longer you talk about price, the higher it will be, and the longer you talk about commission, the lower it will be. Okay? So that's why we want to pre-qualify. Ask those questions ahead of time, right? It's right in the pre-qualifying script. How much do you feel your house should be listed for? And because you're asking questions, one of the questions is there anything that I can answer or that you need to know before I come over? What for? A lot of people will say, what is your commission? You're not going to answer that question. You're going to let them know, hey, that's a great question, and I've written it down. It's one of the first things we're going to talk about. Because the thing you don't want to do is handle objections over the phone. You're going to work way more hours than you need to. So you're going to work many more hours. And the people that don't pre-qualify are the ones that end up complaining about the business a lot because they're running all over the place, not getting the deals. And the people that are pre-qualifying, they're signing contracts, they're getting deals together, and they're skipping past the water cooler where everyone else is standing around saying, man, this is the worst market ever. So let's move into closing. And here's a critical point. Closing does not have to be a life-threatening exercise. Closing is a natural ending to a great presentation. If you are prepared, if you've pre-qualified, you go in, you do your presentation because you're answering all the questions, because you already know what those questions are, so you're answering them all. Then you can move into a nice, are you ready to go ahead? The more professional, the more prepared you are, the easier it is, the more natural it is to close. If you've gone through, if you have gone a thorough pre-qualification, you've made a strong presentation and constantly referred back to their motivation. Now remember, you said you were moving back to Chicago because that's where all your family is. So wouldn't it be great to get back there and reunite with everyone again, and your kids can see their cousins? I mean, that's such a great thing. You guys must be super excited. Then the closing part of the exercise should happen very naturally, right? You're leading with the head, or leading with the heart, and the head will follow. It's a great way to do it. So going back to their motivation, because a lot of times, that's their heart, unless it's a business move, but at the same time, you can pump that up as well. So there's really two basic types of closes. There's the scripted closes, and they're to be used to overcome obvious resistance. So examples would be if I could generate a great offer for you in the next 30 days, something you were really excited about, could we do some business? That's a great close when you're working with an expired. We're going to use the same agent, or we're just never listing again. But listen, if I could generate a great offer for you in the next 30 days, something you really were excited about, could we do some business together? Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, no home is perfect. Even if you were spending $5 million, there would be some compromises. The compromises you have to make on this, home are much, much less than anything else in the market. Does that make sense? Okay, so a hesitant buyer that just keeps looking for that perfect home. The champagne taste with the beer budget, right? So make sure you're really asking, you're really closing on those easy things. B, a natural close natural close to be used when it is time to move forward. So you've had a great presentation, you're sitting there, there's been no hesitation so far. Mr. and Mrs. are you ready to go ahead? Shall we get the paperwork started? And let's get started and put me to work for you, shall we? All right, so it just flows. And because you've made a great presentation, you've done your pre-qualifying, you're dressed for success, you've handled all those objections ahead of time because you knew what they were, so you were prepared when you got to that presentation. Just by saying that, hey, are you ready to go ahead? It just feels right, and a lot of times they will say yes. Okay? If you're not pre-qualifying, when you're doing these listings or you're working with these buyers, that's when you have to use the other closes, the scripted closes, because it wasn't a presentation where it just flowed. It was more of a winging it. Surprises were coming up. Yeah, we're moving to Chicago, but I really don't have to be there till January. Oh, okay, it's June. What am I doing here? Okay, so again, pre-qualify. Closing 5 to 7 times should be a normal part of your selling process. Closing 5 to 7 times. That is an average. If you're not getting the natural close right away, you have to continue closing. You don't want to give up. Remember that 80% of all sales don't happen until after the 5th close. So now that pennies in Canada are not extinct, but people have a lot of them and they're not really spending them and getting any more. 5 to 7 pennies on your desk, have them on your left-hand side or your right-hand side. And every time you close for an appointment, if you're trying to close for that listing appointment or that buyer appointment, slide a penny over. Don't quit until you get to the 5th or 7th, especially the 7th. Okay, so it's called the penny close. Just slide those pennies over. It's a reminder of how many times you've actually tried to close on them. If you're closing 1 to 2 times, then all you're doing is setting up things for someone else to come to close more easily and reap the benefits of your hard work. You've done the pre-qualifying. You've given them their price. If you're not closing enough, you don't get the signature. We're thinking about it. We'll get back to you. We're seeing someone else, and that next person comes in that's done the homework and done the job. They're going to reap the benefits of everything you just did. Okay, because all they're doing is naturally getting to that point. Number 11, closing has to be looked at as an ongoing process and should be a part of your dialogue all the time. So when you're closing, you want to be assumptive. Use assumptive phrases in your dialogue. Something like, as your realtor, when we get together later, after I put your home on the MLS, when we put in your offer, and by the time you've seen 5 or 6 properties, those are the things where, when you get to the listing appointment and you say, hey, thanks for having me over. I'm really excited about getting your home listed and getting it sold for you, right? And I can't wait till we set up, till we get your property listed and have, and get all these great people through, great buyers, these qualified buyers. Be assumptive. Closing is part of the sales cycle. It shouldn't feel like a surprise. And basically, what that means is if you're not following your listing script or your buyer script, when it'd be like sitting in someone's listing appointment. You walk in, hey, this is a great house, and you sit down and say, all right, well, let's go ahead and sign the paper so I can get it listed for you. People would be like, hold the phone there. No, we haven't talked about anything yet. Okay, so it shouldn't come as a surprise, but being assumptive makes it easier for them to say yes when the time comes. Okay, again, more examples would be all the right time packages. That's exactly why we need to set an appointment. Or, if you could get your home sold in the next 30 days, would that pose a problem for you? That's exactly why we need to get together. Let's put your needs first. Do you want to see me today at 5, or how does tomorrow at 4 p.m. sound? If there was a better way to sell your home, wouldn't you like to know about it? Again, something on, well, we've already talked to an agent. Okay, well, that's great. But if there was a better way to sell your home, maybe that's a FSBO, and what's the next step for you? Okay, so get good at those assumptive types of questions or closes. So the most powerful closes are the ones that come naturally as part of the conversation. Again, if we presented well and you've had that great conversation, you've known you've handled all those objections, by moving through to that closing, it will be natural, and a lot of times you will get that signature. One of your homework assignments will be for you guys to identify the top 2 to 3 natural closes that you use on an ongoing basis. So here's again some more examples. So if you're new to the business, or you've had a hard time in the past, getting those closes, here's some more examples. Obviously you want me to get working for you, so let's just sign this agreement. Great, let's get started, shall we? Shall I start the paperwork now? Can you see any reason not to go ahead? And this allows them, if you sense some hesitation, can you see any reason not to go ahead? This is a great one because it just might bring up some objections, so some questions they have in their head that just haven't been answered yet. So that allows them to come out and say, hey, we haven't really talked about how you're going to market my property, or what commission you're charging, or what do you do different than the other agents? Any other thoughts before we put me to work for you? Hey, this is exciting. All we do now is to get some paperwork. Are you ready? And are you ready to go ahead? So super natural closes. If you don't have any, or think about what you say when you're on appointment. Are you saying them assumptively? Is it natural because you've done all the steps, the proper steps? And just remember this, you're not being pushy. Everyone needs a nudge. Let's face it, when people are buying or selling, it is typically the most largest financial decision or transaction that anyone has to make. So sometimes they do need that nudge. Buying a car, not as much, but those sales guys are on you. Should we go ahead and get the paperwork so we can get you the keys? Because when you're making that big of a decision, it's easy to stay in your head as a seller or a buyer and go, I don't know, I'm just not ready. Buyer's remorse, sellers pushing back, going, oh, I think we can get more money. Okay, so it's your job to help everyone arrive at a logical and beneficial conclusion. So ask for those closes. If they're still hesitating, keep asking them why. What's holding you back? Obviously, I sense some hesitation at this time. What's stopping you from listing your home, or what's stopping you from making an offer at this time? And again, see the attached sample of buyer closes and seller closes on the back here. Are you excited about this house? Does it meet your needs? So let's write an offer now and get the process started. How much do you want to offer them? You said you wanted to be moved by September, right? So based on the time it takes to negotiate a good offer, set up a realistic closing time and get you moved. We need to make an offer right away. So let's prepare and sign an offer right now and put me to work. Are you ready to get started? Mr. and Mrs. Smith, is there anything stopping you from buying this home today? Let's take action before someone else beats us to the punch. We need to make an offer today. Does that make sense? Tell me, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, if you felt absolutely confident that I could get this house for the right price, would you buy it? Okay, perfect. So let's put an offer together right now to get you what you want. What price would you like to start with? Fortunately, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, to get you one step closer to moving into your dream home, all we need to do now is sign an offer to see what the seller will take. Let's get started, shall we? And lastly, what's the first thing you would do to make this home your own? Well, we would paint, we would do the kitchen. And then here's some seller closes. To give your property maximum exposure, I'm going to recommend we get a lockbox on the property right away, a sign in the front yard, and of course, we'll get it on the internet as fast as possible. Now, how soon can we come by with a sign in a lockbox? Great, let's sign the agreement. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, do you feel I can sell your home? Well, of course, or yes, I do. Thank you. Then let's sign an agreement. Okay, remember, it's just that little nudge. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is there anything else stopping you from listing your home with me tonight? Again, you're asking that question. Maybe there's some unanswered question, or they say something like, well, not really. Perfect. Would you sign the agreement, please? And as a professional service and to start a relationship, I'll call the agents you still have appointments with and cancel those appointments for you. It's done that way all the time, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Would you like to know what I'm going to say? Yes, I would. This is a really great one because a lot of times these sellers are afraid to call those agents and let people down. Driver personalities. Yeah, no problem. I'll just cancel and we're good to go ahead. But some people that are amiable or expressive, they don't like making those calls. So you're taking the onus off of them. They can get to relax and go, okay, our guy or girl is going to do the dirty work for us. So I'll just call them up and I'll let them know the following. They thought you were terrific. They wanted to give you a chance, but it just made better sense to list with me tonight. If you do have any buyers, go ahead and bring them by. The lockbox will be on the door tomorrow morning. All right. So, it seems like a silly one, but it's really fantastic. And again, it takes people out of their nervousness of how am I going to tell all these other people, especially if it's friends or family that had those listing appointments. Okay. Another one for a seller. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let's make a list of whom I need to call and we can sign the agreement. Or Mr. and Mrs. Seller, based on your time frame, how much you want for your home and the marketing exposure your home needs, I'm the right person for the job. Let's put me to work for you right now. Sign the agreement, please. Okay, so again, you're not being pushy there. It is think of it as closing. It's the ribbon on your Christmas gift or on the birthday gift you give, right? It's that last little bit. That's your job. Again, you've started by pre-qualifying. You've done the great presentation. You look great. Now we're looking for the closing, that ribbon on the package. You're putting it all together for the client. Okay, it's your job. We need to give people those nudges. So a smaller one today, like a little shorter, but so here's your homework for week 11. I cannot stress enough how important the pre-qualification is. When I started pre-qualifying every single person, I even did it with my parents, because again, it became consistency. It's like a great chef working in a kitchen, goes home, has family over for dinner and leaves out a few spices or has the timing off. It's not going to taste the same as the restaurant, but it can. Okay? So print out your pre-qualification scripts for the buyers and the sellers, 10 times each. Keep them handy in your office, your car, or home. Again, they're in weeks 5 and 8. If anyone has the all the right words package, the old style was the CDs. We do have downloadable versions now. They're $150, but I still use them when I'm going on a presentation because I have been speaking the same coaching language for 10 years now. And it's just when you hear it as you're driving to those appointments, it's just reminding you of the terminology you're going to use, and it keeps up the consistency. Fill in the customer's name and address each time you use the script. Write out their answers on the form so you'll have them on file. Again, this information is always helpful at negotiation time. You can remind people why they're moving, why they told you they wanted this style of house. I sold a house to a lady that was very hesitant, and I said to her, Sue-Ann, you said you wanted a bungalow, correct? Yes. Okay, great. You said you wanted some land with some privacy. Is that right? Yeah. And you said you only needed 2 bedrooms. That's right. So this one actually has 2 bedrooms and a basement bedroom. And you wanted a walkout and a double car garage with inside entry. Sue-Ann, is this not the home you pictured for me? Well, yes, it is. Great. Let's go ahead and make an offer before someone else does. It helped her make that, because I was able to remind her, because I had written things down, and it reminded her of, yes, this is what I'm looking for. Why am I hesitating? Okay. And homework for the closing, identify 3 of your favorite natural closes. If you don't have 3 yet, or you only have 1 or 2 that you use these examples on here. Learn them, and practice them, and again, post them on the wall of your office. Make them part of your selling routine. And 4, get in the habit of closing a minimum of 3 times consistently. Don't make a big deal of it, just ask. One more time than is comfortable. And you will grow your closing skills quickly. Okay? When you're on the phone prospecting and you're using the script, throw pennies up there. Or have a golf counter, or whatever it takes. Get in the habit, is if you're not getting that appointment or you're not able to set the buyer appointment, get in the habit of trying to close 5 to 7 times. And you don't want to use the same clothes over and over. So that's why you need a few. And that's why you need those up on your wall so that you can go to the next one or a different one. If we keep saying the same thing, it's not natural. It's like, I don't have anything else to say. So I'm going to say, can you just sign it, please? Right? You just sign it. Make sure you're asking for their business and making that close. So I'll open things up if anyone has anything to talk about or ask. We can go ahead and do that. But just make it your destiny to practice these closes, pre-qualify, make the presentation consistent with every single party that you go to see. So does anyone have anything to add or any other ideas? All right. Well, thanks for listening in. We have one more on this 12-week program next week, and I hope everyone got something out of today. Again, with these conference calls, the key is to grab one or two things out of it and run with it, right? And again, because we have 12 weeks of this stuff, you don't have to do each week and forget about the last week and then start with this week. Pick something that has been missing or that you've wanted to work on in your business, and hopefully this helps you grow that system, grow that activity, and grow those skills for you guys. So I hope everyone had a great day. Have a powerful week, and look forward to speaking with you guys. Take care.